Hello and welcome to another episode of
Absolute Game Off.
Nerd! Yes, our next episode 98. Yos, it is just me tonight. JP has some family stuff that's actually going to be taken away for the next little bit. So it'll be me flying solo here. But with me today, I have a returning guest. I have Chris from Cheddar Comics. Chris, how you doing?
Number 2. The sequel.
Yeah, the sequel, actually. Yeah. You know what I was thinking too? So tonight's topic, what we're going to talk about is the dealer life. So, Chris, you are selling comics full time the first time we chatted. However, I feel like that was right when you really started to ramp up like the weekly IG sales. Like I think prior you were doing like the Etsy shop and things like that. So I think it was right around that time you really started to kick up. And now, you know, we see at least one weekly, we see 2 weeklies. So, you know, we've had people on that are dealers or sell, and it's like, I always want to ask a lot more questions in that.
Sure.
Area. So I was like, let's do an whole episode and let's just talk about that.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you coming on. Yeah. And again, now for anyone listening, I've not given Chris any questions. So I may ask something and it is private. And he has the full rights to say so. But otherwise, I'm just going to be shooting away.
Sorry.
Yeah. All right. So let's start here, Chris.
Yeah.
I know you do a weekly sale every Thursday, correct?
On Instagram.
On Instagram, yes. And then don't you do another one? Is it on Tuesdays? It's like the $1 to $5 books. Is that a consistent thing?
No, I was doing it for a couple months and I stopped doing it.
Okay.
So now it's just Thursday. It's just the premium show. And so I do one every Thursday.
Okay. And then on Instagram, nowhere else, correct?
Yep. Nowhere else.
All right. So with that in mind, let's kind of use the Thursday as kind of the way of our life cycle. So if Thursday is your life cycle, like what day do you start preparing for that claim sale, would you say?
Yeah, and it's a good question too, because it's like the anchor of my week is the Thursday sale, you know. So I go live for about it normally runs like maybe 3.5 hours on Thursday. So if you work your way backwards, it can be anywhere from 2 to 3 or 4 short boxes of inventory. So, and that depends on the size. That could be sets, that could be singles, that could be magazines, that could be books, you know. So it's kind of like an accordion. So sometimes it's hard for me to really gauge. I was like, is this enough for the show? Is this not enough? I'm planning like the gems, the jewels, like if I'm lucky, a week ahead. Sometimes I'm not lucky and I'm out on like Tuesdays or Wednesdays. I'm like, I don't have enough for this picture. I need a couple more. But if I'm really lucky, I have it for like 2 weeks out, you know. But sometimes there's droughts and sometimes there's floods. Right now, I'm in a flood of stuff. And then there's been other times where it's complete famine. I had a famine in like September, October, where it was like I wasn't buying anything and I had to, you know, try to keep up the show. So anyways, long-winded. I'm starting prep like Monday or Tuesday is when I start to prep for the show, because I have a thing called the Cheddar database, and you can send me your wish list and your want list for like run fillers, mostly not for like mega keys, but like run fillers or specific issues. So I have to get to those guys first.
So those are, if you get hits on that, you're selling those to those guys. They're not hitting the claim sale.
Exactly. So I'm trying to like move inventory before the claim sale for my you know, my VIPs, my good guys who are there every week, you know, kind of get to pluck out some stuff. So I might be reaching out to them. If I'm doing my job good, it would be Monday or Tuesday. Sometimes it's Wednesday. But then like Wednesday, like today, you know, I had to look at 2 collections today, so that kind of cut into it, but it's pretty much prepping all day today, you know, with grades and prices and stuff, and then to try to be ready for that preview post for Thursday at noon.
Let me ask, how do you go about grading? Like, you have 3 short boxes, let's say. There's going to be some books that are obviously more premium than other.
Definitely.
Like, what is the range of like, okay, this is a $5 book all day, every day for the most part in most grades, let's just say. So I don't need to do a thorough, like, how does that process work? Like, I can't imagine you're spending the same amount of time on every book when it comes to assessing the grade.
Yeah. So like, like this week I have, for example, because I'm in it today, I have a House of Secrets 92 for Swamp Thing.
Oh yeah, I saw that in your press.
Yeah. So, like obviously like that one, like I'm going through like page by page by page, I'm noting every little thing because at that height, I mean, it's a $500 book, but if, it has rusty staples, so that's a little notch and blah, blah, blah. But for like $3 and $5 stuff, I do grade every book. So I don't spend as much time on those ones, but I do give all of those ones a grade.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because I don't want any surprises for anybody. But yeah, I mean, I definitely spend more time on the bigger ones because mostly I'm just like, I want to make sure I'm right.
Yeah.
If you're coming through and you're spending $500, like, well, I want to be a little conservative. I don't want to be over grading it. I tend to be a conservative grader no matter what, and that's why people are happy with me for the most part. Because I'll say it's a 6 and they'll get it into 7. Great, good for you.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's also obviously going to play into your reputation, right? I mean, if I buy a $3 book from you, I'm just going to be happy because that's the book I wanted. Like, obviously, if it's
definitely
torn to pieces, that's another thing. But if I'm spending $500 in a book, I'm probably going to be a little bit more particular about like the details.
I would be.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm a buyer. I collect. My PC. I'm not collecting as much, but for me, I'm like, well, this has to be what you said it was, and it's even nicer if it's, I'm sure for you too. Like if you bought an 8 and it comes in, and you're like, this is actually a 9. You feel like you got a sweet little treat. A little bonus.
Yeah, and I'm sure that instills brand loyalty.
Absolutely. So people know when I say, I'm not trying to, I don't go through it and be like, oh, it's a 9, so I'm going to say an 8. Like my grading just overall is, I'm probably wrong all the time is what I think it is, and I just go under because it's easier, because I want people to be happy. I don't want a bunch. I've only had, in 3 years of doing Cheddar, I've had, I think out of thousands and thousands and thousands of books, I've had 2 returns on a grading issue, and that's because like I missed something, but that's out of like probably, God, what, 10,000 books,
Yeah.
So keeps people happy.
Yeah. Okay. So is there anything else involved in prep besides grading and then pricing?
Yeah. So it's a lot of bag and boarding, so most everything, like the couple collections I got this week, sometimes if I'm lucky, the bags and boards are good, but for the most part, it's either just a bag or it's an old bag and board. So that takes a lot of time. Or, like for this week too, I have a bunch of wizards, but they're all from different eras. So they're all different sizes. So is this a golden age, or is this a magazine size, or, like just fitting them to the right bag is a lot of it. And then, like sets, or if it's signed, I got to write that it's, signed by George Perez or signed by, there you go. See, yeah. I think that part I'm always underestimating. And then I'm like, I got to do this. This is going to take forever, so that's, and then, and then I gotta, be ready for the pictures, and then like what's kind of top loaded and what's, the $3 stuff is in the back of the 20 photos on Instagram, and the big stuff's in the front, and so there's that kind of curating with my posts I try to do.
Got it. And then, okay, so then now let's just say we're at, so first of all, I also want to say to you and to any other dealer that does this on a regular basis, I am always shocked, impressed, amazed that, like you said, you're on 3.5 hours. I've seen claim sales guys be on for 5+ hours, and I'm always just like, how is this still going on? Like, it's crazy. So I want to ask you though. So you're in the claim sale. You're rolling. Is anyone helping you, or are you doing this solo?
Yeah. So when I first started, I was all by myself, and then now, thankfully, I have my wife. So she helps me. So I'm the ringleader. I'm going through, I'm talking everything. But like, if you're there and you claim something, I'll hand it to her. She'll write, at Back in the Game Comics, and then we'll box it. And then if you buy more, we'll keep all that stuff together to be ready for Friday invoices. So she helps me with that, which streamlines the process a lot for Thursdays.
Yeah, I would say, how long would you say it kind of took you to kind of really get down your groove in that?
Probably, I mean, luckily her and I have been together a long time, so it didn't take too long, but definitely like a couple months. Cause I feel bad for her because, like, she's got to be, she's got to look at the little screen, and like, you have a nice name. Some people have like R8 NK15, and she's like RN, so she's got that part's hard sometimes,
Yeah, and I also imagine too, like when you watch Instagram, like you could really only see like 3 comments at a time or something. Let's just say it seems like it can be really easy to like miss someone's comment or question or claim or
and Instagram is a great app, and sometimes they filter people's comments, which if I could
I've noticed that too.
Zuckerberg for 5 minutes, I don't know why you'd want to. I'm assuming it's if like Kim Kardashian is on or somebody that has like 1 million subscribers or followers or something, and I don't know why they do it, but it's a headache, and it makes people, sometimes they're trying to claim on Instagram, and it's like, oh, I wrote that. I'm like, there's nothing I can do. I don't run this app. I don't have Zuckerberg money,
Yeah, because I've definitely watched some of you see people like type in like, can you not see my comments or anything like not saying to you're specific. I'm just saying in general.
No,
you'll
it
see
happens.
And that is wild. All right, so let's just say, what time's your claim sales start? What time does it start at?
7:30.
7:30. Okay, so you're wrapping up 10:30, 11 o'clock at night.
Yep.
What happens as you finish? Is it I'm done for the night, or do you go late into the night?
Well, if I was a little bit younger, I'd probably go a lot longer, but I have a 4-year-old, so my 4-year-old gets us up at, like 6:30. So we kind of have like, and I know you understand that. So it's like, we kind of got to go to bed.
Yeah.
It's like by that time, and we're, so we just make sure everything's good at night, and then, we'll like kind of count how much we made, and then we'll be like, all right, see you later. Or well, actually, I'm really wired,
The wrinkle of the kid actually is actually asked, like, do you put the kid to bed then prior to the claim sale starting?
Yeah, like the claim sale is literally time for her bedtime. So I put we put her to bed at 7:30 ish. So that's why that time is there, because she goes to bed, and then boom, we come in here.
I gotta say, I don't know, is your daughter, does she just go to bed, or like, because here's the thing, like my kids, we put them down at like, let's say 8 o'clock nowadays these days.
Sure.
Man, these guys will party in their room and like 9:30, 10, like it's crazy.
Right now we're lucky, but I know that window can close at any moment. Right now she goes to bed, but I mean, how kids are. It's like they go in and out of stuff. Right now she's like getting up like an hour later. And then she's saying like, I'm really tired. I'm like, go to sleep then, What are you doing up? Let's go.
Yeah. Okay. So then what's happening Friday? Friday is invoicing then.
Friday is kind of a crazier day because I got, and that's like where I have to like, I really got to make sure I have my coffee and I'm counting right. And, I got to get all your stuff together. I got to count everything, and I double count. And then then I got to see if you have holds, because I do a process where if you don't want to, because I do a sale every week. So if you don't want to ship, I'll hold it for you. If you want to build your box and you don't want to, and you want to save on shipping, which I recommend if you're going to be there, or even
that was going to be a question of mine, because I do know a few dealers that do the same thing.
And for me, it's a time saver too, because if you're going to come back, if I know you're going to be there every week, like, well, why do you want to ship every week? And it saves me from having to box that up. So I got to see if you have holds. And then I got to tally everything, and then I got to get the quantity, and then that'll dictate how much your shipping cost is. And then, kind of tally everything up, and then, send the invoices, and then get that. That takes me about 3 or 4 hours to do, because right now the show's as big as it's ever been. So I have the most amount of people buying than I've ever had.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you. It's taken 1.5 years, but it's paying off.
How many people are you saying averaging in a sale night?
I'd have to count how many lines. I got I do everything by hand. So it's like front and back one sheet. So maybe that's 40, 50 people every week,
Nice.
on average. So, those go out, and then I post the survivors of what didn't
Yeah,
sell.
I see those posts all the time. Yep.
And then that's like another, sometimes they do great, sometimes, nothing sells, which is okay because it's just like one more layer between the live sales and if I'm gonna, put them on eBay, which I don't want to do. 'Cause I only have a dozen things listed on eBay, so I don't want to get to eBay. So I try to sell everything I can before I get to that. So then there's that, and then I'm done. And then I get lunch, and then it's packing orders based on who paid. Most people are great, and they pay me on Friday. So then it's like packing orders from like 1 until like 8 o'clock at night, and then I don't really finish. And then I need to stop, and then I have to catch up, and then I do some Saturday morning, and then anybody who's paid me Friday or Saturday morning, everything gets dropped off Saturday, and then that's it.
Let me ask real quick. Of the 40 to 50 people that are, let's say, in this, how many of those are like weekly returning customers?
I'd say 90%.
Wow, that's incredible. I mean, kudos to you for having the loyalty like that. That's incredible.
Yeah, thank you. No, and I mean, I take a lot of pride in it because, so people are happy with the grades, they're happy with the prices, they're happy with the packaging. I put a little doodle in there, you get a couple free cards. You know, most of them we do probably get, if it depends. Sometimes it's like 2, sometimes it's 10 new people a week. But like last week, I don't think I had anybody new, and it was 100% repeat customers.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so you've now taken me from essentially Monday to Saturday.
Yeah.
Now, in this, there's also a component of you actually have to source your inventory.
That's right.
Where does that fit in? What does that look like? How does that work for you?
Yeah, so it kind of like it cuts the line. So anything that comes up, goes straight to the top of my priority, of the day. So like, for example, today, this is a great time to be having this conversation too, Ron, because I've been like flooded with contacts in the last month. So I don't know if that's a canary in the coal mine economically or if it just happens to be a good month. But I will say that the last month has been my craziest like reach out month
Hey,
I've ever
I will
had.
tell you this. I work in sales in the tech space.
Yeah.
When it rains, it pours, and I'll tell you, when it rains, you gotta keep pressing because the moment you don't press is the moment it dries up, and then you're in that, like you said earlier, like you're in a famine. You're like, what is going on?
Exactly. My dad, one of my quotes from my dad, he's like, "Feast or famine, Chris. Feast or famine." And that's what it is. I mean, like I told you, I had that September, October. I didn't buy a single collection for 2 months. And then this last week, it's been, 5, 6 collections. So yeah, so for me it's different. So it's like, I do this full time. So I advertise. That I buy comics, and it's a localized ad in my area. I'm in Madison, Wisconsin. So it's like, maybe I think it's 60 or 100 mile radius the ad plays. So most of my contacts come through that, but after
wait, what is it posted on, did you say?
Mine is on Facebook.
Okay.
So it's a Facebook ad that I pay for, and that's some of my leads. I'm building a website right now to play or try to compete with some local places in town on Google. So I'll have like a hard website, like an actual .com, and then some of my stuff comes from Instagram because the Instagram page is a little bit bigger. People, in New York or wherever want to sell their stuff. Not that many, and then some are in town that come through. Just that those local connections are like the best thing you can have. You tell everybody that you buy comics. So then when their niece or whoever is cleaning out some house and they find a box, they call you. Or I have a good relationship with a friend of mine has a toy shop in town. So he's like, I don't have room for comics, and I'll just send them to you. And I've got a friend of mine who works at the comic book store here in town, and they don't buy comics. They don't buy collections.
How do they get stuff? Is it just new comic books they do?
They're a franchise, and this is like a satellite franchise of these places in Chicago, and all of their back issues in their bins, which they have like 100 back issue bins, all come from out of state, and they don't buy anything in the store, which is very weird. And I only found that out like last year, and I was like, what? The place doesn't buy anything?
The one thing, whenever I've talked to anyone that owns a brick and mortar, they always talk about the reason why you own it is because collections will walk in your door. So in that scenario, they're walking in and they pick up the phone and call you?
Pretty like if my buddy is working, which he doesn't work full time. I'm trying to convince him to work full time. He will say like, we don't buy anything, but hey, this guy hit up my friend Chris at Cheddar Comics, and he'll look at your stuff and he'll give you a better price than, even if the store did buy, he would pay you more. So it's a lot of different streams of leads, but that's taken 3 years. I mean, at the very beginning, when I had first started, I was doing what they call retail arbitrage, which is, you go to half price books and you buy a $5 book and you flip it for 10. And, you go to, the comic book store and, oh, they just announced, whatever it was back then, Ironheart, and, oh, they still got the Ironheart books in here and they're the price that they were 3 years ago. Take it, boom, flip it. You know what I mean? So it's taken a long time to build up those connections and build out that.
Yeah, that seems a lot more time consuming to find enough inventory to make a living off.
Way more time consuming, but I know a lot of, there's a guy on Whatnot I used to follow, and he was like, hey man, I started out, now I'm doing exclusives with Peach Momoko, he said. And he's like, I started out at half price books, buying dollar books and selling them for $5. You gotta start somewhere.
Gotta start somewhere. So let me ask, how many collections are you buying a week, a month on average, would you say?
Yeah, it's all over the place. So, like I said, like the last month has been crazy. So like this week alone, I bought one on Sunday, I bought 2 on Monday, and I bought one today. So I bought 4 in the last 4 days.
And
which isn't,
What is the size? Like, is there, I imagine there's probably a collection you could come across that would be too big to buy, or like what is like, how do you, what are like the sizes that we're talking about here?
And literally and me getting to those 4 collections, by the way, means that I turned down probably 30 bad leads. You know what I mean?
Okay, that was gonna be my next question, was how many do you reject?
Tons, all the time. It's like 1 out of every 10 is good. You know what I mean? So like someone reached out to me this week. They said, yeah, I got comics to sell. Great, send me a picture. It was 2 comics. That was it. That was all they had. I was like, do you have any more? They're like, no, this is it. I'm like, sorry, these aren't worth anything. They're not worth my time. Then I have, all the way to the other spectrum, and it's like, hey, I have 37,000 comics. But I want, Rohan, $5 a piece. So I want $150,000. I'm like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
So they come in all, much like the human body, they come in all shapes and sizes.
It is funny. You could scroll like, because when I do have some books to sell, I usually just pop them on like a Facebook group that I've done pretty well on.
Yeah.
And you'll see those posts and it'll be like, oh, I'm selling my collection, guys, 2,000 books. And they'll be like $5,000. And it's just like,
yeah,
I'm like, guys, no one's going to buy a 2,000 comic book collection for $5,000. Like, it's funny to me, but no, I totally
that one. I see that type. I see a lot too. The guy who wants like, I don't know where you got this number from kind of price,
Yeah. So one thing I'm very curious about when it comes to sourcing inventory for dealers.
Yeah.
I find that every dealer almost has their kind of lane, which you may say, that they sell in, right? In the sense, like, I'll give you a very simple example, right? We are both good friends with Dan's X-Men comics. Dan will do a sale every once in a while, and it's always X-Men, kind of that Claremont Byrne run era, right? But you're a full-time dealer. Dan's not. I would say, a lot of times when I look through your sales posts, and it's always kind of like bronze, copper, there's a lot of X-Men, like there's a lot of common themes in there.
Yeah.
So when it comes to rejecting collections, is part of that because it doesn't fit in your lane, or how does it always just work out that kind of your lane is always kind of what you've got?
No, it's a good question. I mean, the lane is definitely comfortable. So, if I see like let's say Claremont X-Men's. I've sold Claremont X-Men's over and over and over and over again. So I know that run like the back of my hand. So when I see those books, I'm like 3, 5, 10, 15. I know like boop, boop, boop,
the
boop,
price
boop,
is what to go for them. Got it.
You know what I mean? So that I'm like super comfortable with, so I can usually pay a little bit more. I'm trying to expand what I'm used to. So I recently just bought like a collection I normally wouldn't buy, and it was a cartoon collection. So it was like Richie Rich, Archie, Donald Duck, Mickey Mouse, Walt Disney. Normally that collection I would not buy, but it was so cheap that I was using it as an experiment to educate myself. So I get to go through the 2 boxes and I get to see, I'm like, am I right about these Mickey Mouses? Most of the time I was, but there was stuff in there I discovered that I'm like, okay, this is good to know. And I got to pay to go to school. And there was some Sabrina the Teenage Witch. And I would never look at Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and it was like there was one book I had that was $20. And I'm like, what is that? I don't know that. Then there was another one that was $25, and there was all 3 issues I had were like 15 or $25. So I was like, okay, cool. Now I know if I ever see Sabrina the Teenage Witch, like that's a good thing to buy. And then it taught me the other stuff. I'm like, yeah, Whitman, Donald Ducks, not really. You're gonna have to group them together in a lot and go like at 50 cents or $1.
Yeah, and I imagine too, like as your show has grown in size, your lane has the ability to widen because your audience is growing as well.
100%. And I also know too, like I have such good customers and I have such good people that take care of me and my family that come back every week. I know, oh, this guy loves Alex Ross, or this guy always buys trade paperbacks. So I feel a little bit more comfortable. Like today I bought a book. It was just like a book collection. It was just, he had art books and he had trades. And a couple years ago, like even a year ago, I probably would have been like, I don't know. When I had the Etsy shop and eBay, it was like, I didn't really do good with that. But now I have like 3 or 4 guys that like buy up all my books. They love the books, so I feel more comfortable. I'm trying to widen what I buy, to get new people. Like this week, I bought a bunch of Umbrella Academies, something maybe I wouldn't normally buy. Or I used to be that way with Spawn, and now I buy Spawn everywhere I go because I can't keep Spawn when I get them. Whether it's number 2 or then obviously if you get into the low print run, it's great. But I try not to. But the stuff that I really just stay away from because it never sells is like honestly like post 2000. I just don't. I consistently do not do good with those.
Outside of like maybe like an Ultimate Fallout 4, Edge 2, or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so few keys for 25 years, except for Ultimate Fallout or Spider-Gwen, or I mean, you and I could probably count the 10 of them there are.
I guarantee you we could.
Yeah, but then the filler issues, like a filler issue of X-Men from the 80s will sell, for $3 or something minimum. But I can't sell, at least for me, I have a hard time selling pretty much post 2000 stuff. And it might be, you could say chicken or the egg. Maybe my audience and I are kind of feeding each other and we just all like vintage stuff. Maybe someone else could do better with it. But whenever I try it, I usually
I definitely think there's definitely a component of you are absolutely curating your audience to an extent, right? So that makes a lot of sense. Is there, outside of the modern stuff, like will you go as far back? Like will you go into the golden age, or
I'd love to go into the golden age. I've only come across golden age one time. So I've only bought that a golden age collection once. And that was I have a video on YouTube, and I went through that one, and I had two Golden Age Batmans and a Golden Age cap, and I was like, that was a no brainer for me. But even like Golden Age, I've never come across, I've never even gotten leads or anything on it. Even for like Silver Age, like, and I'm still growing. I mean, we could talk in another year, and hey, we're throwing around X-Men ones every week,
Yeah.
but that stuff's just getting, it's just the age, and it's getting, a lot of it's not being like discovered like it used to be. Unlike the Copper Age stuff, I'm meeting the guy who bought that stuff on the stands.
Yeah.
Like, he's selling me his first Deadpool. He's selling me the Secret Wars 8 that he bought on the stands. So the bronze and silver and golden are just getting a little bit harder to come across. Not that they're not out there, because I'm sure you saw last year that Heritage got that Detective 27 somebody bought at a garage sale.
Yeah, I think a lot of I actually, and I've said this a number of times on the show, I actually think in the next 5 to 10 years, you will see a lot of crazy collections in terms of that high end side, just because of like, it is more of a function though of like the baby boomer kind of generation passing.
Definitely.
And so where you're talking about like you're buying from the guy that bought it off the rack, in that scenario, it's probably that guy's kids or grandkids that is selling them, and they probably have heard of Heritage and things like that. Because like you could follow, like there's a couple of the Heritage guys that I follow on IG. Dude, every week they're posting ASM 1, X-Men 1, like the big hitters. Like, look what just walked in the door. And so it's like, I think it's those people kind of know like, oh, I should go. There's a better way for me to make money on this versus letting someone else make money. So that makes a lot of sense. I am curious. Do you think there is on the audience that you have, would you place a price cap on a book? Like, for example, like I'm looking at this collection, there's books in here that are 5,000 plus. Would you be like, okay, this I can make some good money? Or we're like, well, I'm not there yet. Like, how does that work?
I kind of have to just push the boundary a little bit. Like for example, the Golden Age stuff, I wasn't really sure if I'd be able to sell that, because, and I mean, one of them I still have, but that was like 1,500 for a Golden Age cap. I still have, but I was able to sell a $950 the Batman 41, the Joker cover. So I wasn't really sure, and then some guy I've never sold to before showed up, and he took care of it. So sometimes I really don't know. I got to kind of push limits. And I see the chat here. I just want to respond to the chat, because the chat is getting very upset about my comment. I'm not saying that it's not an absolute comment that nothing after 2000 is worth $1. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the majority. Let's think of a pie of all publishing between DC and Marvel. It's more difficult to sell that stuff. Because a lot of people have it, the print runs, and the few keys. That's not to say, guys, that there isn't $20 books. It's not zero. It's just harder,
Well, I'll tell you this, Chris. No one's gonna shit on modern books more than me, so I'm all good with all those comments.
It's not that they're they're there, but you just have to think about how many more boxes you have to buy to find the one.
Mm-hmm.
That's even worth $20. So I just want to clear that up. I can't write in the chat. I'm just responding. And it's a lot easier, obviously, if you buy a Bronze Age collection, of course. Oh my God, it's $20 books flying around all over,
Yeah. No, I think a lot of that all makes a lot of sense, and it's cool to see guys like you, and then even like Spro, who's in the comments. Like, I've been able to become friends with him, and you can see your guys's business grow, right?
Yeah.
Even like when we were talking about that lane, like if I was to go through all of your sale posts from the beginning, you can see that lane widen and the type of book grow. And like, it's really cool to see.
That's very kind. And I mean, I used to feel, like I can see it in myself where I would, I'd feel like I'd be a little anxious about buying $100 book. And then I'd be a little anxious about buying 150, and now I'm like increasing it like more and more. So now I'm like, oh, okay, I can spend $200 is nothing, or spend $1,000 and I'm not worried about it as much, you know. Not like it was in the beginning, because I remember first buying like a couple $100 books, and I was like, I don't know if I can do this, you know. But now it's like, it's fine.
How often, when you get all these leads, you reject a ton of them. There's a ton of them. You're like, oh, I want to go get this. How often are you going, meeting the person, seeing the collection, digging the collection, but then you guys don't meet on price?
Yeah, it's a good question, because I'm in Madison, Wisconsin. So I'm about like 90 minutes to Milwaukee, and I'm about like 2.5 hours to Chicago. So, and then I'm like maybe 90 minutes to Debec, Iowa. So I'm kind of in the middle of some metro areas. So what I try to feel them out beforehand, because most of the time, if they're in Madison, I just go and meet them, and that's the end of it, because they're just right here in town. But a lot of the leads will be like in Iowa, or one of them was in Minnesota, like St. Paul is like 8 hours if I'm driving home, you know. So I try to get a feel for their price if I can beforehand, to not waste my time. Because I've had a lot of people beforehand tell me, hey, I have like 20 lawn boxes. Everything that I have in these 20 lawn boxes is from the 90s on, and I want $15,000. Okay, well, that's about $100 a box. You know, a comic shop rate is like 15 or 20 for a lawn box. So you got to have a lot of great stuff if you're paying that much. So there's only been a couple of times where I thought that they were crazy, and I'll tell you why. Because I hate these websites. I hate hipcomics.com. I loathe that website because hipcomics.com, put me on the record, has ruined more deals for me than anything else, because it incredibly overinflates their values on their website. So people, and it's not their fault, they're trusting Hip Comics to tell them, hey, this book, it says, and they put it in though, because they screw it up. They put in, oh, it's a 9.8. I'm like, oh, it is? Oh, it's raw, but I think it could be a 9.8, and so it's worth $200. I'm like, you have to get it graded.
Yeah, if you want that price.
You don't know how to grade. You know what I mean? And on and on and on. And even like and Mint Hunter, who you just had, he had a video once where he said that same thing. Hip Comics run the same thing, where well, I think their lowest, I don't know if it's the same anymore. I think they're low. Okay, cool. Hail Caesar knows what's up. I don't even think you can put in $1 book. I think it automatically tells you it's $3. But if you have 100 books or you have 1,000 books, that's a lot of inflation. You know what I mean? That's a lot of fat. You're saying this collection went from $1,000 to $3,000.
Yeah.
You know, so it just puts this huge valley between me and a lot of people. So Hip Comics, hate that website.
I will say it's funny. I mean, like I feel like now I have a lot of friends that buy comic books. I don't know anyone that buys off a Hip Comic.
Yeah, I have some friends. I think I had somebody reach out to do like maybe auctions or something. But they do that like cataloging that CLZ does. So these people out there will just go, or they'll find comics and well, Hip Comics said this, and it has ruined so many deals.
Yeah.
Don't even worry about it, Spro. It's terrible.
Yeah, Spro. It's a website just like My Comic Shop, or
you can have auctions, or you can buy on there, or you can catalog your personal collection.
Yeah. Okay, so in general, if you have made the decision to go out and at least look at it, most likely you're going to have a high success rate of coming home with the collection.
Yeah, because normally I'll just try to get a feel, just so I can see, because some people are just nuts, and they want prices that don't exist in the market, and I tell them that, and I'm like, nobody's going to pay you more around here than me, and I try to make that possible, because I don't want them to go to the bookstore here in town, or the comic shop, who doesn't even buy. But the bookshop here, we have half price. I don't know if you have half price by you.
Yep, we do.
They will give you 1 penny to 5 pennies per book.
Yeah.
And then you will go in next week and you'll see one of your penny books in the case for $100.
Yeah, dude, I always like, because I'll take my kids to Half Price Books, like to buy books for them. We'll buy some board games. Like we just went recently to get some board games. And they have the comics. Like I'm always gonna at least look. And I'm always like, especially they have like that middle case that you have to like do the finger thing with.
Yeah, just like one.
And like I'm always like, you'll come across like a random like Punisher book that's like not in high grade. It'll be like $65. Like, and I'm always like, who priced this? Like, where is this coming from?
Well, and then it's worse because that they paid somebody a nickel.
Yeah.
So I try to pay the most just so that they don't go there, and I also want to pay the most to be competitive, but I also want to feel good too. I don't want to rip people off.
Yeah, and I feel like people should know, like the broader the scope of inventory said store holds, the less they're going to give you for your book, right? Because they have 100%. So many other things, right? You who just do comics are going to have the most knowledge and are therefore going to pay the most because that's your sole source of inventory. Half Price Books got books, DVDs, records, like they don't care.
Exactly. And I mean, I even heard, I was there shopping too, because I'll go in there with the family, and I heard them training one of the people, and the girl was like, "What do I price this out? How do we price it?" And she was like, "You just make up a price, pretty much. It's whatever you think." I was like, "Oh,
excellent.
That makes a lot of sense." What a great business model.
Yeah, Neil, the locked plastic case, and I hate it. I hate doing the finger thing. It drives me crazy.
It's like this big too.
Yeah,
like 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, it's so annoying. That being said, I do love Half Price Books for the kids' books, the board games, things like that. Fantastic. Yeah. How do you think geography plays into this? Now, I have my theory is, and you can let me know if you think this theory is accurate, that you don't want to be in Chicago. You don't want to be in downtown Milwaukee, probably because most people that live there have smaller apartments, don't have room for these collections. You want to be, like you said, kind of 60 minutes, let's just say 30 minutes, 90 minutes away, because people have houses, they have storage, easier to accumulate collections. It just seems to me like whenever I talk to people that are like dealers, that they're rarely ever in a downtown major metropolitan area, it seems like.
Because you'll have, like those guys, like I've debated it too, where I'm like, do I want to get more into Chicago or do I want to get more into Milwaukee? And I mean, it's, it's in the land of milk and honey. It's like, sure, there could be more opportunities, but there's also going to be 10 more of me or 100 more of me looking at the same books, and I honestly find that the guys that are closer to the cities pretty much want like full retail or above what they're selling for, so there's really no room for, I've never gone to Chicago to buy a collection yet. And that's because there's just no room for me. If I was the end collector, I'm like, no, but I need to buy to sell to the end collector. I'm not the end collector. I have to leave 25 to 50%, to make some money.
Yeah.
And some people don't like that. And I'm like, that's fine. Then if you want all the money, you do all the work and you'll get all the money.
Yeah, exactly. Like people, let's just say theoretically they sell you this collection and they like happen to be on Instagram, like, oh, let me look up that guy that I sold to. And then they're like, hey, what? What? And it's 100%. Like, well, dude, you had all the time, all the freedom to do this yourself. But you're right. Like they don't take into account. I mean, we obviously just spent 40 minutes talking about how Monday to Saturday you're working just to the sales, let alone look for the collection. So it's like, like if you want, everyone has the right. Like, and this is the thing that's funny to me, especially when I started coming into the hobby, that I used to think about a lot, is like the LCS that I went to the first time that I got back in, he's been in business for 33 years and he's a brick and mortar. He's now retired. And I always used to think it is amazing to me that this guy, let alone the thousands of others out there, or hundreds of others, or whatever the number is, have been able to maintain a business for 3+ decades. And this guy does no new comic books. It is solely back issue vintage comics. And I always just like, it's incredible to me that you've sustained a business for 3+ decades, just on the simple fact that you're hoping someone's going to walk in the door with a comic book collection that's worth buying on a regular basis. And it does happen, obviously.
Yeah. To stay open for decades.
Yeah. Have you ever would you ever think about doing a brick and mortar, or do you like the online gig?
Never. I'll never do one. My dad owned a store when I was a
Oh,
little
that's
kid.
right. That's right. Yeah.
So I watched my dad close 2 stores actually. So it is eh, if you're one of the lucky ones, it can work, but just seeing my dad close 2 stores, and just, like you do get the benefit of the walk-ins. That is like kind of the only benefit,
Hmm.
is that people are gonna look it up and find you and walk in with a giant size X-Men. That's the only that's really the only good part. The rest of it is like the electric bill and the rent and the shelving and the cases and ay, 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 I'm happy with where I'm at, so I will as of right now I would not open a store. I don't want to say
Well,
never, but
on the flip side, you don't have a brick and mortar, but this week you bought hella collections. What is the
yeah.
storage looking like in the house?
There's because you can see this is my bedroom, so my whole business has been built out of this room. Um, to my left is my press and my table where I do my shows, and I'm on my computer with you. And then I have a small in this apartment building. I have like maybe a 10 by 12 storage unit
Unit, yeah.
downstairs that we've converted to a full Cheddar warehouse, that just has lawn boxes and supplies, and all the new collections go in there. And if we didn't have that, I'd have to rent a storage unit. So I might have to get to that point at some point, but um, yeah. And then my wife has been great, and she's been helping me more and more because I really need like a second. I really need like an employee right now. I need like a second person. There's so much work. So my kid is going to be she'll be in kindergarten in the fall.
So you'll
So
save on daycare costs.
yeah, exactly. So my wife is like, okay, well, at that point, she'll be in school till from like 8 to 3. So I'm working for you. I'm like, great, awesome, you know.
Oh, okay.
So
So your wife she's like stay-at-home mom then.
yeah, she doesn't have she doesn't have a job. She just takes care of the kid all day. And then in the fall, she's gonna get folded in and be employee number one.
Perfect. Yeah, I was thinking maybe she has a full-time job, but you're paying childcare, and then now you don't have childcare costs because the
Nope.
school is okay.
Cheddar's
Cool.
paying for all this somehow.
There you go. I would say we should also say kudos and thank you to Mrs. Cheddar that allows you to take over the bedroom. So
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and this is Cheddar is only here because of her. This is all her ideas. So I wouldn't be here for what. Hey, there she is. She's in the chat.
yeah.
I wouldn't be here without her. This was all her idea to do. So
Yeah,
there she is.
I remember when you shared that story about how she was like, you should try that out full time. And
that's crazy. That's not gonna happen. That's not gonna work.
So let me ask you this. You've
please.
been doing this now full time for a little bit now. There's a lot of work involved. What is the hour component a week do you think that is actual work? Now I know is it still a passion for you? Like, do you find the joy in it? Like, talk to me about that.
Yeah, I mean the joy that, like my personal buying is way down. Like I don't buy as much as I used to. But that's because I'm with new books every day, so that like kind of like PC buying is down. I'm just buying big stuff, that I can't find. Like I bought a Batman 227 for myself for a Malibu Sun 13. Like that's pretty much it. Those are like my like 2 buys for the year because I get to spend all this time with all these other books all week, Like this week, I got a House of Secrets 92 in, which I love because it's for Swamp Thing. I'm like, great, and I get to enjoy with it and be with it for a little bit, and it's out the door. What was your question, Ron? I totally
Well, I was
forgot.
gonna say basically, actually, where you're going though is where I was going next with the question. So I do want to come back to that. But I would say, first off, how many hours a week would you say you're working?
Yeah, so I mean, it's it's your own business, so you're not working less, you're working more. I mean, I'm putting in like 12-hour days, so I'm pretty much am working from 9 to 9, pretty much 8 to 8, somewhere in there, with like lunch and dinner and like play with the kid for a little bit, and then that's through like Saturday, and then I'm just like a pancake on Sunday, and then it's start all over again.
Is it a labor of love?
I love it. I'm so lucky. I mean, I am so lucky, so lucky. I mean, I am incredibly blessed to be able to have this be my job somehow because people have taken care of me because I've taken care of them for the last year and a half. SideQuest Comics in the chat. That dude, I mean, people like him, like that come back and support me week after week, whether it's $5 or $200. I mean, like those guys like are saved my life. This whole business has completely turned my entire life around. And I know that that's like I'm here and I'm doing it, but I've had other businesses where I've been there doing it and no one's showing up. So I know how much it means, to have great people like him and other people show up week after week and take care of me and my family. It's like, oh my God, it's so lucky. And I love it. And I mean, I love taking care of people. I love that people feel like they get a good deal and people are happy with me, most importantly. And then I'm trying to do that same thing as a buyer. Like, I want people to, be happy after I've bought from them. Like the guy today, he was like, there was, and some people have a sob story because they want more money out of you. I know that trick. But this guy actually, because he showed me his broken windshield, and he was like, I just have these books. Like, I'm trying to get money for my broken windshield. And, this like this piece of wood flew off this car and hit me, and I'm okay and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, like, I'm so glad you came to me because if you went to Half Price Books, I know that you're getting screwed. So I'm like, let me save you a little bit. I'll give you as much as I can with leaving room for me to make profit. But he was happy, I was happy, and he got more money than he would have gone anywhere else. So that gives me a lot of pride.
Neil is asking though, have you had any incidents? Like, have there been any like not fights, but like arguments or anything like that?
Do you ever get about the places you have to go to see the collection? I had a couple incidents. What does that mean?
I think I wasn't sure too, but I think since he said I've had a couple incidents, I'm assuming like, has there been any like
creepy stuff?
Not as like, for example, JP's had some instances where like he's went and got a good book and then like he'll drive away and then like an hour later he'll get a call like, oh, you ripped me off and blah 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 or something like that.
I've never had that. I mean, I had the one that was yeah, okay, nervous. The one this week, and it turned out totally fine. Everything was great. But it's like, I show up I always text Mrs. Cheddar the address that I'm at. I will say that. So I'm like, hey, I'm going to be here at 2:00. So, and I always text her like when I'm done, like, hey, we're okay. And he was a great guy and everything, but he's like, hey, everything's in the basement. And I was like, oh, okay. He's like, don't worry, the lights are on. And I was like, okay. I was like, you walk first. You go down first, and I was like, oh, all right. There was another lady in her house. She was really old, and she had Fox News on blaring. And she was like, oh, come in here. There wasn't a single light on in her house. There was like, she had like, it was literally the glow of the TV. It was like pitch, like all the curtains were drawn. The only thing that was lighting this house was this huge TV showing Fox News was the only light in there. And I was like, where are she's like, the boxes are over here. I'm like, oh, okay. I'll try to follow you through this dark living room. I don't know where I am. But luckily nothing, too weird except for the basement comment this week. Don't worry. The lights are on, Rohan.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the future with growth related to that. So you talked about the wife is going to start helping out once the kiddos go into kindergarten, which is great. Yeah. Is there like for you, if it just keeps growing and growing and that means adding more employees, is that what you want to do? Or is it like, no, this is kind of my jam and I like it right here?
Yeah, I think it's more like I think like it's not so much volume, because of the volume is a problem because there's so much volume that we're trying to figure out what to do with what do you do with the under $3 stuff, because for me, like, I like having Cheddar have premium stuff, I like having like good stuff. So not that, so what do we do with the dollar stuff? What do we do with that kind of stuff? So we're trying to figure out where and how to like get some money out of it. I did just do a big donation to charity I donated 40 lawn boxes, which was 12,000 comics, to a local children's literacy nonprofit. And they are going to get all those comics to kids and support children's literacy from 3 to 18, which is great.
Yeah.
But in the future, I'm like, well, I don't know. I want to do that every year, but I don't know that I want to do that for every single dollar comic that comes in.
And I imagine, right, like if you buy a short box of comics, there's going to be a percentage of it that's gravy material for you, and there's always going to be a lot that's like, these are all dollar books. Like that is a question I always have, like, what like, because you don't like go set up at like cons or anything like that.
No, I tried it a couple times, and it's just a lot of work. I'm just so lazy, I'm like,
yeah.
And it takes a few, and now with how big the Thursday show is, I'm like, I don't know that I can take, because you got to do the prep all week, and then you got to do the setup for the show, and then you got to, tear it all down and put it all back. And, I did shows where I'm like, I made $200, and it's like took 3 days off the calendar, or, and it just didn't really move that much. So I know that that's definitely an option. Like if I wanted to join the circuit, I know of all the local shows, to try to milk that, or if I had a garage sale in my apartment building or whatever. But right now we're trying eBay lots. So we're just like lotting together a character, doing quantity times price, and just kind of testing the waters to see how that works. But that is the bulk of what you're buying, is that stuff. That is every collection. Even if it's a really great collection with a few good pieces, most of what you're buying is that $3 stuff, or that donation stuff, or the quarter bins, or I mean, there's no getting around. That's what most of it is every single time.
Yeah.
The collection I bought today, this guy had great books that I helped with his windshield, and then the bottom half of the box was just like, it was like brand new Jonah Hex books. And it's like, okay, well, I'll make the money on the books, and these ones I don't know anything about, so I'll see. So there's no really getting around that, but we're in the middle of trying to figure that out. But yeah, I'm just always trying to, for expansion, I'm just trying to get more profitable, trying to source locally and not doing retail arbitrage. So trying not to buy on eBay or whatnot or whatever to do that flip, because my percentages are better in a collection.
Yeah.
And then trying to get more capital money for bigger collections that will have a better return on investment for me. Because there's been a couple collections, like when maybe a year ago, that came in. I'm like, I don't have that kind of money right now.
Yeah, I mean, capital, it's something too that I always am very curious about when it comes to dealers, because now, for example, like he's a very big dealer. For example, like you've heard of Bry's Comics, I'm sure, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and like I used to watch a lot of his videos, and he'd be like, "Oh, I bought this collection for 40,000. I bought this collection for 50,000."
Oh my God, I know.
And I remember I asked him, I was like, "Dude, do you have like a line of credit at a bank or something?" Or he's like, "No, it's just all cash within the business." And I'm like, "How do you have that much liquid cash to just be?" And like obviously, like he's turning over enough volume to do it, but I'm always just like, dude.
And
like,
he always says too in his video, he's like, I just wired transferred this guy. I'm like, is there any protections with that?
I don't know.
He's like, I just wire transferred 40 grand. I'm like, oh
yeah,
I'm so nervous,
Yeah. Can I ask, what is the biggest book you have sold?
I think the biggest one is maybe $1,000.
Okay.
Maybe 15, somewhere in there. I don't know if we've hit 2 yet. So, but that's up, from, my biggest book probably a year ago was maybe like $200. So, I believe in incrementalism. So, if I can just spend a little bit more, get a little bit bigger, and that's kind of worked over the year, where I'm buying $100 books, and now I'm more comfortable, buying $500 books or $1,000 books,
Yeah, totally. So yeah, let's kind of swing back a little bit to what you brought up earlier. So you said in terms of PC buying, you're down. Now, is that a function of you've got to use the capital for the business, or is it a function, or maybe it's a combo, a function of because you're seeing so many books, you don't have the need to own as many books anymore?
Bingo. It's kind of like that, because you kind of ask the question, like, do I need to own it? and it's an interesting brain tingler because, like, do you need to own it? Can you spend time with it for the week? Do you have an emotional attachment to it? Those are kind of the ones that I have bought are the ones I have the most emotion attached to it. Like my Batman 227 I'm looking at. My wife and I had that like 10 years ago, and it was a book that we had, and we were poor and we needed the money, and I sold it, and we always regretted it, and now I got it back, and it's great to look at. So, um, with that, I think I'm getting more enjoyment out of just being with them, than having to own them. Also, sometimes there's a book in the collection and I can just go yoink.
Yeah, well, I remember. I mean,
Mine,
I remember you told me that about the first Harley Quinn you got. You were
Yeah,
like,
that one. I was like, whoa, I've always wanted this. I'm keeping this. I'm gonna make plenty. Like, if I'm gonna make, if the business won't be like really harmed, like, I paid 500, but I'm gonna keep the one $500 book. You know what I mean? Like, well, that would be bad, but it was like, I'm gonna make so much money off this collection. I'm gonna be totally okay if I get to keep this one book, and now I don't
yeah,
have to buy it. So
I think too when
that,
like
that
when I've made some friends with other dealers, it always seems to like because like you said, because you see so many now regularly, it seems like the dealers that still do collect to some capacity have a much more narrow, specific, I collect, golden age, high grade Batman, and that's it.
yeah.
Right? Like, they see it ASM one, no big deal. They're throwing it in, they want to get rid of it, make the money on it. Like they select, it's like it's very specific, and they go all in on that.
Do you ever upgrade your books and your PC with stuff you buy in your collection? I've been doing that recently. I do that, Sprouts. I do that all the time. All the time. It's one of my big perks.
I think
I do.
I think all dealers for that do that when they find their niche that comes in. If they can upgrade, they do that. I feel like.
I was like, oh, I have this book. I better go check mine and see which one's nicer because obviously I'm going to keep the nicer one.
Yeah.
I do it like if I have, if I have it, it's like, oh my God, every other week probably I'm upgrading. I'm like, oh, this is a nicer first Bane than what I have, or this is a nicer John Stewart than what I have. So obviously I'm going to keep the nicer one.
Yeah.
That's one of my few great perks.
Yeah.
Because I can't keep everything because people are always like, how could you sell this? I'm like, this is a business. This
Yeah.
is how I survive. This is the business buys it, the business sells it. It's like I'm, not in the middle of it every time.
Yeah, yeah, no, exactly. I think that's very, very common amongst the dealer side. Talk to me though. You said one of the few perks. What would you say the other perks are, or are there? What are the other perks?
Definitely upgrading. I don't keep a lot of books. I've only done it like last year. I think I kept maybe 3. And that was only because the collections were like I was gonna make like or
Make it
Cheddar
F
was
on
gonna
them.
make plenty off of it. Where it was like, okay, it's not gonna miss $100 book or something, but I wouldn't do it if it was like, you paid 1,500 for it, and you're like, oh, it has a Hulk 181. Like, well, I'm not gonna keep that.
Yeah.
Now I'm broke. Now we're in the red. Um, Definitely the upgrades and definitely just a few books falling off, or yeah, that's probably my biggest ones. But then also too, like like I'm going to C2E2 next month, which is the big Chicago Comic
Chicago.
Con. I'm not doing things for me personally because Cheddar, the business, is paying for it. So it's like Cheddar and Chris are different, right? Chris gets to go because Cheddar's paying. Chris gets to meet Jenny Frizzing because Cheddar's paying for it. You know what I mean? So there's a little bit of that. So it's like I'm excited to go to that because the
The
business is
tax
going to pay
write-offs,
for it.
baby. Just write it off.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, this hotel's a write-off and this
Yeah,
meal is a
it's
write-off.
research.
And, yeah, it's research. I'm going to be doing some videos there, so that'll be a nice. I'm hoping to go to more cons. This is kind of a first step to kind of test the waters with cons. So then it's like, well, could I get on a plane and go to New York Comic Con or go to Terrificon and have lunch with you or whatever.
Yeah, Richard, well, we talked about that a little earlier before you got on. Mrs. Cheddar helps them in the claim sales, and then when their kiddo goes to kindergarten, she's going to be kind of helping them out full time during the day.
Yeah, she's right now she's helping me during the live sales, and right now I've given her she's doing some eBay listings, like maybe 1 or 2 a day to try to get some other money.
Yeah, Bob wants it all. Bob wants it all. Wait, so going back to C2E2, like, are you going just for the fun of it, to enjoy, meet the artists? Like, because you talk about, like, maybe I'll get on a plane. Like, is there something else that you're doing at these cons?
Yeah, so C2E2, I'm going to get some stuff signed, to maybe get slabbed. I have a couple books, like I have this, hold on, let me grab it real quick, 'cause I got this book in a collection. I don't know if you're a Samurai Jack, if you ever watched Samurai Jack.
I honestly don't even know what Samurai Jack is.
The cartoon on Adult Swim or on Cartoon Network.
Okay.
And maybe like this is 2002, and this is signed by this came in a collection. It was in the very back of the collection. I didn't even know it was there, and it's signed by the guy who plays. He's dead, and he played the bad guy. But Phil Lamar is the voice actor for Samurai Jack, and this signature doesn't exist on any Samurai Jack item anywhere because the guy died in like 2005. So this, I'm gonna crack out and get signed by Samurai Jack Phil Lamar, and then I'll have like pretty much like a one of a kind. There's no collectible where both of their signatures are on a Samurai Jack item, because of his death. So there's stuff like that.
Is that to sell, or is that to keep?
No, that's to sell. That's going to be for sale. So like stuff like that, and then I'm gonna try to experiment with maybe doing some videos on the fly, doing some like dealer interviews, or try to meet up with some people, like some great buyers of mine or friends of mine, like SideQuest. Hopefully he's going to C2E2. I can meet up with him, or I have a couple
Did
other
you guys
friends.
meet at a show? I thought I remember seeing like a post.
Yeah, I met SideQuest. Yeah, I met him at Fan Expo last year in Chicago.
Yeah. Okay.
When you guys were at Terrificon that same weekend. So do that and try to meet some people, and try to see how that goes. If that goes good, then maybe I'll get on a plane. At the end of the year, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. That is now that you brought that up, that is kind of one thing we didn't talk about. How often are you, of the collections you're buying, how often are you taking a book and sending it to CGC?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm really only sending in ones that, like there was a guy, his collection he had all like New Mutants and X-Men. But he bought them on the stand and he put them in a box, and they were so well protected. I was like, I think these are like 9.6s, 9.8s. So I sent in the first Cable and the first Gambit, because I thought that they would be 9.8. So I get them cleaned and pressed, and then I get them slabbed. But it's really only worth it to get, to me, from my research, what I've found is it's really only worth it if, it's a key and it's a 9.8 for the most part. It's not worth, a lot of filler issues aren't even worth getting it unless you get the 9.8, and then you're just gambling, and I can't afford to gamble, on like tons and tons of different books. You know what I mean? At least if they,
are you doing the cleaning and pressing?
No, I do very basic cleaning and pressing for stuff that I don't get slabbed. So like that Swamp Thing that's going to go up.
Yeah, I saw that. Tomorrow. That was the post you had. That was in the press.
Yeah, like it just had like a couple of like little ripples along the bottom, and I was like, okay, I could press that out because I'm like really amateur. Like it just goes in there for 15 minutes. It stays there for the day. But when I slab, it's like it's more worth it to pay somebody, because the difference between a 9.6 and a 9.8 could be $500 or something. So if my guy can get it pressed out, it's like, it's kind of worth it to pay him. It's like $13,
Yeah. So then would you say you kind of have like a value floor or threshold you have to hit for it to be worth it to sending to CGC then?
Yeah, because the other thing too, I've been doing more of since they opened up JSA is, honestly, there's like a great opportunity for us resellers right now to take stuff that's signed raw and get it JSA'd and slabbed, and then like the value of it could be way more than it was if it wasn't signed. So I've been getting, like, I've been buying these. Jim Lee did those Comic Express X-Men ones back in the 90s, and they come with a COA. And I was buying those, dude, all day, 30, $40 on eBay. Boom, 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 all the time. I get them back, they're 9/8, and they're worth 250. So it's like I paid 80, and I'm flipping them all day for 250. And it's like, okay, let's go. This is great. I love this. But that's only because they did JSA. It wasn't like that when it was CBCS.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Do you ever think, is there ever a concern, like in that scenario, that you will exhaust your audience on that specific inventory?
Yes. Because sometimes if I have the same book like over and over, like the frequency is too often, I'm not finding a new buyer. Like if I have like Batman 423, like every single week, like sometimes by like the third or fourth week, it doesn't sell because everyone's bought it already. Well, I'm not finding that buyer. So sometimes that can happen. So sometimes I'll like, okay, I'm gonna hold off on buying that for a little bit. I'll wait a month and then I'll get it again.
And that actually reminds me of another question I was going to ask. You have a claim sale on Thursday. You don't sell everything. Let's say you do your Survivor post. You sell whatever is left there. If there are some survivors still, do you put those in the next claim sale, or do you wait a cycle, or does it go to eBay automatically, or what is that?
Yeah, so the process I have now, luckily, like between the live sale and then the Survivor reel, I never, except for slabs. Slabs are kind of hit or miss. Sometimes those will stay around, but for the most part, I normally never have any big keys left over. I never have like bigger stuff left over because they normally sell on Thursday. So a lot of the stuff that I have on Fridays, for the most part, unless it's weird like Tomb Raider, I'm looking at you, Laura Croft. I've got a lot of her left, but I sold a lot of her. So I will keep them aside for like a month, and I'll just kind of build a Survivor box for like a month, and then I'll do a claim post, like an old school claim post on Instagram to try to hit new, different buyers who don't want to come to the live sales, because a lot of people don't want to come to the live sales, which I don't blame them. It's not it's some people's style and it's not some other people's style. For me, I found the most success as Cheddar doing them, so that's why I do them. So I just kind of keep them to the side, let them build out for a month, and then maybe I'll have like a claim sale like once a month to kind of clear out inventory. Then after that, then I'll go to eBay. You see how much I don't want to go to eBay?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. I can totally understand why with how much that probably cuts into your
15%. And
yeah,
I'd rather give somebody a deal. You don't have the repeat customer. When somebody buys from you on eBay, for the most part, it's normally once. Maybe twice.
And it's also a cold transaction for the most part.
Exactly. Right? So that's why it's so much nicer. I'm like, I'll take the hit on Instagram. I don't care. If you send me an offer and I'm like, whatever, $5, sure, I'll take it. And then they come back and then it's great. And then it's like, it just pays for itself after that.
Yeah.
SideQuest is being very sweet. Thank you, SideQuest, for watching tonight, dude.
Chris here wants to know, where did the name Cheddar Comics come from?
Yeah, because you're making cheddar. Yeah, so it's a couple things. I mean, I am in Wisconsin, that's one. So cheese capital. It's a silly name because it's a silly business. It's just like it's just stupid sounding, which I love. It's not a serious thing because my last business was very serious, so I wanted to have fun with this one. And then premium, like the best stuff kind of is what I'm aiming for in the long run. And then money, making that cheddar.
Cheddar.
Yeah, there you go.
Maybe you could start another one and call it Bread Comics.
There you go. Put them together.
Yeah. Awesome. I think that kind of exhausts all the questions I had. I think running through them. I will last thing I'll finish up with. This is not seller related, but when we first had you on, you had just dropped, or was dropping that week, the Gambit video. X-Men 266, annual 14 debate. You've done a few others. You recently did the Corner Box video, which I loved.
Thank you so much.
You do a great job editing them, but I imagine that takes a lot of time that you don't have to do them as much as possible.
You can see a year and a half, and I've done 4 videos. It's like they just take, and the corner boxes one was honestly like, man, it was like a labor of love. It was, so many hours. I don't even want to count how many hours. And then it's like, and then it's got 300 views. So I'm like, okay, well,
the return on investment's not there.
It's not, it's like, I'm glad people like it, which is great. Yeah. See, thank you, Sidecast. I appreciate you. What's up, Whatcast? But it's a little bit easier to make shorts. I can do a short in a couple hours, so it's like I'm trying to do more of that. But the long form is definitely, I can either like sit, like what would you do? Dude, you sit down like, okay, do I want to sit here? Do I want to make money? Or do I want to make a video that no one's gonna see? It's like, well, okay,
Yeah.
It's totally hard, but I'm trying to make shorts. So I'm trying to kind of get that maybe into shorts, because those I can do in like an hour or two, So like, why did they make Giant Size X-Men? Oh, they wanted to sell international comics. That's why they made Giant Size X-Men. That's why Wolverine is from Canada and Storm is from Africa. They just wanted to sell that overseas. That's the whole reason they're like that.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, no, this has been great.
I was like, I'm either gonna be helpful, or this is gonna be like no help at all.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not that I'm gonna be a dealer now. I'm just very curious. I'm very, very curious about like the day to day and how it is people do this business. It's very interesting to me. It's very cool to hear about. And to kind of peek behind the back, or peek behind the curtains is really cool to hear about. So I appreciate you coming on.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been a great honor.
Before we wrap it up, do you want to give another shout to your sales and your posts and everything about you?
Yeah, so find me on Instagram. Thursday live sales every Thursday. There's some claim posts of some stuff. If it's an odder end or a toy or something, that's kind of random. But otherwise, I'm there every Thursday, 3 hours. We have a great time. Got repeat customers. I got great people in the chat here coming back week after week, supporting me and the family. So keeping the lights on and keeping me out of a regular job. So
yeah,
very lucky.
Yeah,
very,
and
very lucky.
I'll update the show description to put all your contact info stuff
Thank
in there.
So much.
But yeah, everyone, thanks for listening and checking it out. Next week, FYI, we will be gone, so we'll be back in 2 weeks. And we will see you then. But otherwise, everyone, take it easy. Where's our I'm never good at this stuff. Let me find our outro. All right. Peace out, y'all. There's the cheddar. There it is.